Madhya. My name is Praveen Raj Rajendran and my metric number is A22A0671. Now I want to present data description. A statistic is a number that is calculated from sample values and used for statistical purposes. Include estimating the population parameter, describing the sample, and evaluating the hypothesis. Next includes the scientific methods of data collection, analysis, summarization, and presentation. The purpose of this study case is to learn how to use SPSS for data collection, statistical analysis, graphical representation, and descriptive statistics. Based on the data set given, which is data set A, there is a total of 392 observation with the data set vehicle fuel consumption per 100 kilometers. The data collection includes a variety of characteristics including KPL, horsepower, and weight. Next is sampling data and recode categorical data. Sampling is a process of selecting a few people or things for internal study that each individually or objectively represent a sample of intended community. Sampling can also be non-probability based, which is a strategy in which an analyst determines and extract a sample of data based on professional judgment. Data has been characterized as a collection of facts, class, qualitative, analytical, graphical analysis, interval, scale, numerical value, and attributes are just a few of general qualities of categoric data. As a sample size for this observation, we use the group member metric numbers with the lowest last two digits, which is 30. As a result, we choose the student matrix lowest two-digit number is Nur Khairia Amira binti Muhammad Zain. Our metric number is A22A0230.
Hai, Assalamualaikum. My name is Nakia Amira binti Muhammad Zaid and my metric number is A22A0230. So I would like to explain about numerical descriptive measure. There are three parts on numerical descriptive measure. The first one is center of tendency. There are two variables in center of tendency. The first one is variable of liter per hundred and the second one is variable of kpf, travel distance. Okay, for variable liter per hundred, mean equal to 6.1857, median equal to 6.25, and mode is equal to 7.69. Next variable for KPL travel distance, mean 70.16, median 16, and the mode is 13. Okay, so the next part, which is part B, is measure of position. There are two variables, which is liter per hundred and KPL travel distance. Okay, for variable of liter per hundred, its duration is 2.0556627 and its standard deviation is 1.4337582. Okay, next is variable for KPL travel distance. Its duration is 21.348512 while its standard deviation is 4.620445. Okay, for the last part of numerical descriptive measure, part C is measure of position. For the first variable, which is liter per hundred, first quartile is equal to 5.22 and second quartile equal to 6.25, and the third quartile is equal to 7.14. Next variable for KPL travel distance. For the first quartile, it's equal to 14 and second quartile equal to 16, while the last quartile, third quartile is equal to 19.16.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Nur Intan Natasha binti Adnan. For 4.0 graphical representation drawing, I would like to explain about histogram and line graph for the fuel consumption per 100 kilometers. There are 12 class intervals. At the midpoint of 5.15, the graph started to increase and it reached the highest frequency at 30. Then, at the midpoint of 10.19, it started to drop to the frequency of 0 drastically and it started to increase frequency 0 to 1 in 10.91 midpoint. Next, histogram and line graph for travel distance in kilometer per liter. It also has 12 class intervals. At the midpoint of 15.07, the graph started to increase and it reached the highest frequency at 46. Then, at the midpoint of 32.08, it started to drop to the frequency of 0 drastically, and it started to increase frequency 0 to 2 in 36.94 midpoint. Finally, pie graph for brand of cars. There are 8 class of the brand of cars. The BMW brand of car has the highest frequency, which is 26% as 94 sector angel. There is two group class which has the same percentage of frequency 1.33%, which is Citroen and Datsun, and this car has the least frequency compared with others.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ni Nurul Nadia Akila binti Mazlan. My metric number is A22A0753. Today, I will present statistical analysis using software. The software that we use in Microsoft Excel and SPSS is Microsoft Excel is the basic feature of all spreadsheet using a grid of cells arranged in number, row, and letter name column to organize data manipulation like arithmetic operation. It has a battery of supply function to answer statistical, and SPSS is provides data analysis for descriptive statistic, numerical outcome prediction, and group identification. Numerical descriptive measure. Numerical descriptive measure for liter per hundred. Liter per hundred. The above drawing graph is using group data and it is plotted with an x-axis and y-axis. The x-axis represents the mean point of the class interval and the y-axis represents the frequency of the data. Then the graph of SPSS is using group data. The x-axis and y-axis is the same as the draw group as the draw graph. The both graph shape of the distribution is bell-shaped. This numerical descriptive measure for KPI is based on the drawing graph above. The group data is used and it is plotted with an x-axis and y-axis. The x-axis represents the mean point of the class interval and the y-axis represents the frequency of the data. Then the graph of SPSS is using group data. The x-axis and y-axis is the same as the draw graph. The both graph shape of the distribution is bell-shaped. Hypothesis testing. To get hypothesis testing, we use 5 steps, which is first step is state non-hypothesis and alternate hypothesis. Second step is state the level of significance. Third step is compute the statistic. Fourth step is decision rule, and the last step, which is fifth, is making a decision and forming a conclusion. For liter per hundred, the conclusion that we get is fail to reject hash 0 equal to hash 1 under critical value because the value is equal to 0 and cannot support hash 1, same as KPL. The conclusion is fail to reject hash 0 equal to hash 1 under the critical value because the value is equal to 0 and cannot support hash 1. For ANOVA, we also use the same step, which is the 5 step, and the conclusion that we get is fail to reject hash 0 under the critical value because the value is equal to 0 and cannot support hash 1. Other than that, liter per hundred is not equal with KPL.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Maizatu Amira Haizam binti Azlan and my metric number is A2280645. Now I will explain for 5.3, which is correlation analysis. Correlation analysis is also known as bivariate is primarily concerned with finding out whether a relationship exists between variables and then determining the magnitude and action of that relationship. The correlation coefficient between liter per hundred and KPL shows a strong negative significance, which is negative 0.930. Now I will explain confidence intervals, an upper bound and a lower bound which represent the range within which the estimate is expected to fall if resample include the confidence interval. These limits are determined by adding uncertainty to the sample statistic, which is calculated from the population sample. Here you can see confidence interval 9870 show the difference between two population means which are 5.9042 and 6.3672. Next, predictive modeling is a mathematical process used to predict future events or outcomes by analyzing patterns in a given set of input data. It is an important component of predictive analytics, which use current and historical data to predict activity, behavior, and trends. Here y can be the number of liter per hundred, negative 0.247 can be the KPL number, and 0.711 can be the horsepower number. In conclusion, the data analysis process uses IBM SPSS statistics software. The dataset used set A include variables such as liter per hundred, KPL, cylinder, horsepower, weight, and brand. The analysis starts by randomly selecting 150 observations based on the last two lowest digits of the metric numbers. Various numerical descriptive measures were calculated using SPSS statistics. Measures of central tendency, mean, median, and mode were calculated for the variables liter per hundred and KPL. Rand measures specifically quantized and range between them are determined for the same variable. The sample variance and standard deviation were also calculated for the dataset. The concept of distribution shape is introduced, distinguishing between symmetry and non-symmetry. Symmetric distribution, like normally distribution, exhibit mirror image characteristics on both sides. Asymmetric distribution, known as skewed distribution, do not have this mirror image relationship. Skewness refers to the tendency for values to be more frequent at one end of the x-axis.